It's time to bring back everyone's favorite project! Woo! Putting in this work table was probably the best decision I've ever made for this room, and clearly it's been seeing so much use I couldn't even be bothered to clear it off to film this intro. And this was filmed, at this point, 2 years after the stuff you're about to watch. Oh my goodness. Here we go! Baby, holy crap, I'm so excited to bring this project back. For this video, I was originally going to take some time to cut out a nice custom formed deck with some artistic touches and cool designs, but this longboard is actually on a personal deadline because at time of filming, I was planning to use it for transportation around school. So I just did the simplest thing I could possibly make. Either way, it wouldn't be possible without this work table, and even though it's not this far along in the footage you're about to watch, it is usable enough, so let's get into it. First step is to grab the other slab of wood that's been sitting back here the whole... Oh no. Oh no. Am I gonna need to remove the whole table? Did not think this one through. Can I like... Oh no. Maybe? Oh, it just clears it. Oh, goodness. So with that out of the way, let's get it on the table and start prepping this thing. That's gonna be a longboard. I've got this nice template that I printed out and taped together, and I can use that for precise measurements. Seems legit to me. This square part at the end is for something I have planned much later in this project, but for now I'm gonna ignore that and just cut the outline of the board. I'm just gonna mark everything I can using this template, and that way I know exactly where to cut. My coworker has some bigger tools that he lets me borrow, so I'm gonna hop over there and use his table saw for the big cuts on this. And back at my place, I learned my lesson when making this work table. So this time I'm gonna set up a tarp here to see if I can get the mess a little more contained. And with that ready to go, let's head inside and cut out a longboard deck. With the main deck cut out, I can mark where the trucks are going to screw in, as well as a little hole in the back for some wires to stick through. Before I put much more effort into this, I do want to see if this will work at all. So let's get the trucks on and see how it does. All right, here we go. Oh no. That is a boingy boy. Me. Turns out, most real boards are made of high-grade maple and or bamboo, and regular project plywood is not that. It's also usually pressed in a way that makes it bend just slightly in ways that give it more structural strength, whereas this is literally just a flat piece of wood, not intended for the kind of forces I'm putting on it at all. But I got this far, so just for fun, let's see how it does outside. Additionally, this shape just looks absolutely stupid and causes massive wheel bite because the back part has no cutouts to allow the wheels to come up when I steer. It's basically like riding a table. So those are the cons. Pros, the cables come through beautifully and it rolls, technically. Steering is limited, but also I'm gonna make it a bit shorter. I also made this little adapter part for the headlight. More on that later, but let's just see how well it does. It looks cool. Helps with the beast scene. This is just a really cheap headlight I found on Amazon. I might upgrade it later. Speaking of Amazon, new plan. I need a board in 3 days and this is just not working. So I'm gonna order something cheap and work on something better while I use that. Let's get the trucks onto this thing and see if it does any better. I'm also gonna tape the cables into place under it because I don't want to make any cuts just yet. If this thing ends up not working, I might still be able to return it. Anyway, let's head out and see how it does. Already this is much better. It's super solid, hardly has any wheel bite, and it just feels really good to ride. Go figure, maybe the pros know what they're doing. I dropped the Amazon board into my unnecessarily detailed CAD model, where I've been designing this whole thing. I will talk more about this headlight mount later, but let's go over the electronics enclosure. Now, whether or not you've actually seen an electric longboard before, this probably looks really weird to you, because it's a super unconventional way to do it. For this prototype, it is just a big box on top, and this is another thing having to do with other plans later down the line, but for now, we're going with it. I am actually taking wires into account for the first time, like, ever. That's one mistake I tend to make with my designs, is forgetting that wires do in fact take up space. Because it's on top, that's the reason we need to cut a hole in the deck and pass those cables through, so let's take everything apart and go to my little makeshift wood room to cut this thing out. With that done, I think that's all the woodworking we need to do, at least until the next iteration of the board, which won't be for a while, so let's clean this place up. It's really just that first fold that's a doozy, and after that, it doesn't get much better. Now, I don't want the electronics enclosure to just sit on top of the deck and be subjected to all the abuse that would come with that, so I'm going to put a couple layers of foam in between the housing and the deck. Originally, I designed the board and the housing to fit perfectly, but this board from Amazon is much narrower in the back, so the housing hangs over a bit. This means we need an adapter plate that can screw into the trucks and provide those holes for the enclosure that were originally going to be directly in the deck. And for now, I can just mock this up out of some spare plywood. I mean, it's half decent. Now, my printer isn't very big, so I'll have to print the enclosure in 4 parts. Once they're done, I'll test to make sure a battery fits with some padding. Now that I'm sure it'll work, I'll just epoxy the pieces together as if it were one. Now we wait 24 hours, do not touch anything, and pray there's not an earthquake.
The next day.
Well, that's not great. Certainly is strong enough. This side looks great. How'd the other one turn out? Oh, well that's fun. There we go. Okay, not exactly flush. Yeah. I mean, it's not great. It's really not great. Despite the epoxy joint not turning out quite as cleanly as I'd hoped, it's just a first prototype and it will serve its function, so let's gather up everything we have so far. We've got all the pieces, now all that's left is to put it all together. My gosh, freaking look at that. That is disgusting. Everything is looking good here, so let's put the front trucks on and see if this thing will actually work. Let's start by charging the batteries up to a mid-range voltage, just 3.85 volts to start, which is actually something you'd normally use for long-term storage, but I just don't want to do a full charge just yet. Oh, this is always the scary part. battery is ready to go, let's prop this thing up so the wheels can spin freely and see if everything powers up. Alright, the time has finally come. Revving up the motors for the second time ever, and the first time while they're on an actual board. Now, it's been a while since I've messed with this, so I'm actually just gonna do guided setup again and start from scratch here. Alright, calibrating the motors. Let's see what we got here. Set this up so you guys can see what's going on here. Very first test with it on a board. I've set my current limits pretty low, 3 amps for throttle and braking, so we shouldn't see any huge jumps here. Alright. Looking good. Braking works. Everything looks solid. Okay, we're now at 5 amps both directions. Cool. And just as a test, what if the remote disconnects? 0 throttle, just like I want. And as soon as it reconnects, boom, instant control. Love that, big fan. Let's go ahead and turn this off, and let's put the cover on. Oh gosh, that's gonna get old. So, despite the fact that the housing takes freaking ages to get on and off, it was at this moment that I realized, for a first prototype, this actually looks decent. Once you get past the fact that it's just a big box, it actually does look really sleek and well designed. Let's do one more quick test with the cover on. And I think this is ready for its first proper outdoor test with motors. All right, first ever outdoor test. Board moves. Okay, I am moving. All right, I bumped the current from 5 amps to 15 amps. Throttle, and from 5 to 10 amps braking. Let's see what that does. Okay, still not too powerful. Okay, I'm now up to 30 amps both directions. Let's see what we get out of that. Okay, honestly not feeling a whole lot of difference. Okay, so update, I wasn't actually applying those changes, so I bumped it back down to 20 amps. Let's see if that makes a difference now. Oh yes, it definitely does. I was worried for a second there, but we've got some headroom. Woohoo! Turning is not the on screen I'm at. So turning is not the strong suit. That's awesome! Yeah, honestly, I might just keep it at 20 amps for a little bit, because this is a bit of a challenge. No, wait, watch this. Come to me! Slowly getting the hang of things. I'll release a video later going into more detail of my experience learning to ride this thing, but here's a preview of some of my very first steps with this. It occurred to me at this moment that using 1/4-inch craft plywood for that interface plate at the highest stress point on the whole board might not have been the best idea. Alright, well, I think that's enough for today. That's gonna be a pain to fix. Well, until it broke, that was really fun and great proof of concept. Now, it's worth noting, I'm still using a tiny fraction of the power this thing is capable of. It rattles less than I was expecting on the road, and honestly, I think except for that wood part, everything held together pretty well. Now, originally, I was planning to have this part be one video so we can get right back to building the work table, but there ended up being so much other stuff that I wanted to include that I ended up just splitting it right down the middle. So this was part 3. Be sure to stay tuned for part 4, where we tackle some of these issues and get something that's actually rideable in time for school. And until then, make something, sing something, hug someone. I'll see you very soon. So much static. That's a bit of a difference. There's our sink. Me coughing. Oh, this feels so wrong. Big bucks on the back of the board. Even if the story doesn't line up in real life, it'll still look like it lines up in video. And that's all that really matters, is that I look like I know what I'm doing.